Chiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Portal Knights, played on PlayStation 4 for the review, but also available on Xbox One, originally through Steam Early Access on PC, and currently still in development for Nintendo Switch. Portal Knights is the first game I recall playing by German developer Keen Games, as I always get curious about the $20 to $30 indie games that get physical releases. The world of Portal Knights has been fragmented, and it's your job to visit the lands and reconnect all the portals between them and slay a few bosses along the way. As you travel across the 48 thematic worlds, you'll discover each one as a handful of resources that can be gathered and used to construct new weapons, armor, and abilities, as well as consumable items and building materials. Portal Knight is a third-person action RPG that can be switched to a first-person viewpoint with the click of a button, and unlike the majority of action RPGs, has an emphasis on building and crafting, and something closely resembling Minecraft. Dragon Quest Builders was actually the first title that came to mind, but it obviously had its mechanic drawn from Minecraft as well. You begin the game by creating a Portal Knight of either gender, with a variety of hairstyles and eye colors. You choose a class for your character that cannot be changed once decided, either warrior, mage, or ranger. Once you have this character created, they can be used in different worlds, both offline and online. Each of the 48 levels is randomly generated when you create a universe, but seems to stay the same and not regenerate once visited. When you create a universe, you can choose whether you want your levels to be large or small. After creation, when you enter a level, you begin on the area's launch pad, and then begin searching for the tall gateways known as portals. Sometimes they'll be fairly obvious, even right next to you, and sometimes they'll be hidden underground or in a dungeon-like structure, and sometimes there's even more than one. At any time, you can choose to fast travel back to the launch pad, back to the area you designated as home, or to any other area you've already opened. In other words, it's really easy to get around in this game. Portals are opened by obtaining a varying number of colored shards found from mining resource squares and killing enemies. You can then manually craft the shards into full-on portal blocks and place 6 of them to activate one of those gateways. The first area, the portals require blue blocks, of which takes 2 shards to make. The next area is 3 yellows, then 4 greens, with the final boss's gateway taking 5 red shards per block. Each area has a designated level of how difficult the enemies you find there will be. Sometimes there seemed a correlation between enemy level and what color a shard they would drop. Other times it felt like it may have been determined by my level, as in one time I leveled up and they started dropping the next color, where I wasn't done in the world I was in with the previous. This forced me to backtrack a few worlds and kill things and mine there instead. There are plants to reap, trees to harvest, ore to gather, and blocks to collect, with a variety of tools you can construct to help you do so. My strategy was to set up a home base fairly early, and set that as my home island. Here I created the various structures that grant you additional recipes and did a little base building. You can create treasure chests to store your inventory overload, and even build a garden where you can plant seeds to have resources be available at home. Honestly though, plants and trees were hardly ever in short supply, as the needed wood logs was the same from all trees and was gathered extremely quickly and easily. The one exception to the plants are palm leaves for linen cloth and silk for silk cloth that have to be grown in specific environments. The easiest way around that was finding a homestead in a winter world, and even had a hoed out garden area where I just planted rows and rows of silk seeds and came back and checked on it later. Yeah, I know, silk seeds, whatever. Now, without going back and counting specifically, I remember probably 8 or 9 different biomes that are spread across the 48 levels. It's a decent variety, applying each one to 3 or 4 levels each. I won't dwell too long on this, but I've often had conversations with friends about using random level generation in games, and by being able to make a near infinite arrangement through this process, they all start to feel the exact same through that randomness. So many levels felt like I delved into a castle basement somewhere just to find a portal at the end, and so they all just kind of started to blur together. The materials for which you'll find yourself grinding will differ a little by your class, as mage enhancements are constructed by altar, warrior by the anvil, and ranger by the archery target thing. As a mage, I needed a lot of cloth as well as gemstones, which meant I spent a lot of time mining various levels. You can find new blueprints via treasure chests as well as enemy drops that included some armor and consumable item recipes. Once a recipe is learned, you can go to your crafting menu and search for it in its various category, and see which, if any, crafting station is necessary. You can upgrade each station a few levels throughout the course of the game, making more and more advanced items. The combat in Portal Knights is fairly simple. You use your item bar across the bottom of the screen to equip weapons, abilities, and items. The first 4 on the left are shortcutted using the 4 directions on the D-pad. You can use the R2 button to swing or launch whatever item is currently highlighted that goes toward your reticle. The range classes are definitely easier to use in my opinion, but in the end you'll be watching and predicting enemy attack animations, as most take multiple hits and will have time to close the distance to you before you can drop them. You can lock the camera on a target with L2 and move around them, but you have to be very careful of your environment because a lot of levels have precipices leading into oblivion. If you die by falling or by losing all of your HP, you restart from the level's launch pad and lose 5% of your cash. There are only a handful of enemy behaviors that preside in a dozen or so enemy models, which makes general combat just a little bit bland. But you're here to build and craft, not have epic duels, right? I will say the 3 boss fights had some different mechanics that made them pretty enjoyable, and the last one was even a bit challenging and took some practice at level 27. More bosses with a reason to fight them multiple times, like rare drops, could have added to the game for sure. There are also events that seem to be triggered once a day, where one of the levels you've opened will have an invasion of a specific enemy type. The enemies were usually a slightly higher level than I was, granting quite a bit more experience as well as higher quality drops. One event opened up some training trials, a temple level that permanently remained open, allowing me to visit the few vendors there to purchase some higher level armor recipes. By the time I could afford them, the pieces of equipment were underleveled anyway, but it's the thought that counts, right? In fact, I wasn't really sure what to do with money at all, as I'd sell extra recipes I found or the few of a resource I had over the stat count that I wanted to store, and I didn't really run across any other vendors that provided anything useful that I couldn't just make myself. Enemies and sometimes mine blocks will drop little yellow cubes that when picked up grant experience points. As you level up, your base stats will increase, but you can also assign 3 points into whichever attribute you want. There's a sort of skill tree as you pass specific level thresholds, allowing you to select additional bonuses to your character that could be toggled back and forth at any time, allowing you to prepare for specific situations. Graphically, the game maintains its cartoony look pretty well, and uses some high-definition textures. The way some resources glint in the moonlight is pleasing, and the various light sources make a difference in dark places. I did have a few technical issues with the game on PlayStation 4, like putting the game in rest mode to step away for a while. I'd fire it back up and be unable to move. I had one other instance where the controller just decided to stop interacting, period, as I went into a menu. Nothing that restarts couldn't handle. I didn't attempt online gameplay, but the game also has split-screen co-op capability. Personally, I think it'd be a bit difficult to pace yourself the same as someone else, as I'd just get random urges to increase the quality or style of my base. Maybe it would be less grinding through online, as each player could contribute blocks to the portal opening and other general resources. And I suppose if people enjoy their Minecraft servers, this really would be no different. One of the biggest differences between this game and Dragon Quest Builders is the fact that you can fast travel and move back and forth to all the places you've been. At first, I thought the 4 resetting chapters in Dragon Quest Builders wasn't a good idea, because I wanted to keep building on my home base there. Turns out that starting over with new materials and new recipes each chapter, though, in Dragon Quest Builders really helped keep the freshness alive, as I worked to get a platinum trophy in the game, spending over 40 hours with it. With Portal Nights, I started by opening every world, and I got to about 40 or 41 and then just happened across the last boss level and just went with it. Instead of grinding another couple hours for my best gear and to reach the level cap, I finished the game around 23 hours. Let me also make a note here that I'm not really, nor have I ever been, into Minecraft, so some may appreciate the free world aspect more than I. To recap, we have predictable, slightly monotonous combat against common AI patterns, but a few fun boss mechanics, 3 different character classes with their own weapons and bonuses, a variety of recipes to craft and build structures with, a significant number of thematic levels with unique resources, randomly generated levels, split screen and online multiplayer, a cartoony atmosphere with some good textures, and a whole lot of freedom and maneuverability between areas. Keeping to my genre-specific rating scale with Portal Nights as an action RPG, it hits above average with a 67 out of 100 on a true 1 to 100 scale, with 50 being average. This is Giro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Crafting new reviews weekly, subscribe to the channel for notifications, or catch me on Twitter @Umbra Games.